Hi everybody, Emily here. Thought I'd do a video update on what's new in the shop at the Sign of the Golden Scissors. So if you've been to the website recently, you will see that I have re-released yet another Larkin and Smith pattern. The newest one is the 18th Century Bonnet Pattern. This is one of my favorite things to make. I love 18th century bonnets, so very excited to have this one back in print. As you may know, I started out doing, as far as reprinting, the Larkin and Smith pattern started with the English gown and the stays, now have the fashionable gown in print, and the 18th century men's shirt manual, which I just sold the last one of this week, so I'm actually going to have to be reordering that. But so this year I want to start focusing on accessories, and this bonnet pattern was one of the first ones to bring back, in addition to some of the cap kits that are currently in the shop. So I've had a couple of questions about this particular pattern, what it includes, questions about the kits, as well as a possibility for custom-made bonnets and such. So this particular pattern, this is the Larkin and Smith 18th century bonnet pattern. It is designed to be suitable for the 1760s through to the early 1780s. This was originally produced by Hallie Larkin and Stephanie Smith, who were the original owners of At the Sign of the Golden Scissors. It was created from many years of their research, as well as trial and error in just playing around with different shapes and sizes for the bonnets, studying period artwork, as well as descriptions. There's really only just that one bonnet that's owned by the Colonial Williams Foundation that is known to be of the 18th century. There may very well be other ones out there still hiding around somewhere, but that's really the only known example that's out there. So in addition to that bonnet, which is a very specific style and size, we've had to rely on period artwork and descriptions in order to create patterns like this. So this, as I said, was the result of many years of their research, as well as teaching workshops. So initially, the bonnet was only available as kits, as well as an item produced in some of their workshops. So the printed version of the pattern, I think, was 2014 or 2015? 2015. And so I now have it back in print. I made just some very minor updates to the instructions, added a little bit of additional information. But overall, this is the same pattern that was produced originally by Hallie and Stephanie. So what does it include? Cover photo has your basic information on what to purchase for fabric and notions. You're also getting a copy of the printed pattern and this little documentation card. I really like having these. It was something that Hallie and Stephanie had initially started doing, and I'm going to continue doing that with different patterns and kits. It's just a really nice thing to include, keep with you. If you're doing living history events and someone has a question, you can show that card and have a period image and use it as a discussion point. So just a nice little extra to include. Probably the biggest change that I made was the packaging. Most of the other patterns have a paper printed envelope, and because I'm doing a much smaller run of these patterns, I decided to go ahead and skip the printed envelope and just do the cardstock for the initial front. It was a little bit cheaper for me to produce, but it also meant that I did not need to raise the price of the pattern. I'm really trying hard to keep prices the same, and so this was a choice that I made in order to keep the pattern the same price, which is $15. That's the pattern. Questions that I've had on some of the kits. So right now I have in the shop both pre-cut kits as well as an option for a build your own kit. And so the pre-cut bonnet kits, these include the printed instructions, as well as your pre-cut pieces of silk for the different portions of the bonnet, the silk ribbon for the drawstring portion of the back of the bonnet, threads, as well as a little packet of needles. I never have too many new fresh needles. And so right now I have the option for solid black. I have I don't know how well this is going to show up on camera, but this is a spotted silk. I'll take that out of the package for you. And I have one more of this lovely slate green. Hopefully that's showing up okay on camera. So these particular kits, I included strips of the silk taffeta to match the bonnet, so you can have a bonnet that is trimmed in the self fabric. And you also get a pre-cut piece for your bonnet brim. So there will be prep work required to get your bonnet brim usable, and the pattern will walk you through what to do in order to prep that brim piece. So let me just show you the spotted silk here real quick, just because that is kind of a neat material. And for those of you that don't want just plain black, this gives you a little bit more character. I don't know how well that's actually showing up, but you can see it has a very tiny diamond print to it. It's not really focusing. You can see it when you go to the shop. I've got a picture of it next to some of the other silks, so you can actually see the little bit of texture for that. So those are the pre-cut kits. And then I have the option for the build your own kits, which is something I'm very excited about. I know that some of us in living history community, as well as the historical costuming community, sometimes get a little concerned about, purchasing ready-made or kits and kind of looking like cookie cutter versions of ourselves, which in some cases that can actually be really fun. I love, for example, seeing people who have used the exact same material to make a gown, and then all being at the same event or just comparing pictures online, because even though the textile is the same, everybody's version is going to be different. So don't worry about that. So the build your own bonnet kits, you're going to get black silk taffeta, and this is a really, really nice weight of taffeta. It does have a little bit of a ribbed texture to it. You're going to get the ribbon for the back of the bonnet. You get the paper pattern, your documentation card, and you're getting a sample of the bonnet brim material. I opted to do that as opposed to the full brim for these build your own kits. It's going to make it a little bit easier for me to ship them. And it also keeps the kits a little bit more affordable. And so in addition to that, you get to choose what you want for ribbon trim. So right now I have the option for a black silk satin. These are 2-inch wide ribbons. It's black silk satin. That's a double-faced silk satin. And a lilac and a pink. There's the pink and the lilac. And these are single-faced silk satin, which is actually closer to what a lot of the ribbons in the 18th century would have been. And as I said, these are both 2-inch wide silk satin ribbons. So you can select the color ribbon that you want to create your own kit. And if you don't like any of those particular color options, feel free to send me a message, because I do have other ribbons in stock. And I am more than happy to put something else together for you if you want something a little bit different. So the bonnets themselves. This is the version that I made for myself this last year. And this particular one is trimmed in a ivory silk taffeta as opposed to the silk ribbon. Both options are totally correct. It's completely up to you when you're making your bonnet, whether you want the self fabric, contrasting fabric, or ribbon trim. And this particular one is just done very simple, ribbon poofs with a 4-loop bow. And this one is actually done with a single layer of silk taffeta. I can put together a kit for you if you want one that is lined. That is also an option. You do see period bonnets with contrasting linings mentioned. But to give you an idea, this is what this basic bonnet is going to look like. So this one is a relatively small version. And this is going to be appropriate for pretty much any living history impression, whether you are doing a working class, middle class, or an upper class impression. Silk bonnets are worn by basically everybody in the 18th century. So you do see bonnets that are a little bit more elaborately trimmed in the 1770s and 1780s. So just think about that when you are making your bonnet, whether it's from the kit or whether you're purchasing the pattern and doing your own materials. You'll want to look at period artwork to help inspire you if you're looking to do something that is on the more historically accurate side. This particular bonnet was made for me many years ago by Larkin, and this was produced before the printed pattern was available. And you see the brim shape on this one is just a little bit different, so you can see how things have been refined over the years. And this particular one is made out of a silk file, so it has a kind of a ribbed texture to it, which is not showing up very well on camera. Needs a bit of a steam just to kind of fluff it back up into shape, but this is one that has a contrasting lining trim, and this was based off from period newspaper ads that I had and sent to Hallie to custom make my bonnet. So you can just see how that looks. So he said it needs a little bit of a steam just to freshen it up. I've had it in a box for storage for a while, but there is that. I have had a couple of comments and questions asking me about the new bonnet that I have been working on. So you'll see these two ladies behind me. Last year I had a very special commission that I worked on for an 18th century cap as well as a bonnet for a client who wanted both items but wanted them much bigger. She was looking for late 1770s, early 1780s. So of course hairstyles are much taller, they're much wider. Everything is just getting poofy and fluffy and just really, really fun. I love the 1780s. So I needed to create a bonnet that was going to be bigger than the standard Larkin and Smith version for her. And the image that we based it on was called the Fair Tutoress, and I can link that down below, the museum link for the image. So in order to produce that bonnet for her, I did a couple of mock-ups, lots in paper version first before moving on to silk. This was one of my first complete mock-ups that I made for her, just to see how the size, how the brim shape was going to work. And so this was one of the versions that we came up with. This is a big bonnet, and I really am looking forward to offering this first as a kit and then eventually as a printed pattern down the road for those of you that want a big ass bonnet. So this is just a single layer of taffeta. I've got some tissue in here just to kind of help it hold its shape for the moment. But to give you an idea, which the trim wasn't totally finished, as I said, this was just a mock-up, but to give you an idea, this bonnet is big. Now, of course, I don't have my hair up in a period manner. If I was doing this for 1780s or late 1770s, I would have much more padding and everything going on. But this kind of gives you an idea of just how big this particular bonnet is by comparison. So 1760s, 1770s, 1780s. And this would be a higher fashion version. And so this one was done just with the silk poofs and trying out a tied version of the bow as opposed to one that's just made out of loops. So there's that version. Take it back. This was actually my first mock-up out of the silk taffeta, so I wasn't totally happy with the brim shape on this one. The height was good, but it wasn't as tall as the client wanted. So I went from that to this other version here that I just showed you. But again, to give you an idea, it's very big, it's very puffy, and with proper hair underneath, it's going to sit up just a little bit taller. And then set you back over there. The green version. Very, very happy with the way that this particular one turned out as well. Again, this was another mock-up, and this is probably going to become my bonnet. I thought about putting it in the shop as a ready-made item, but I really like it, so I think this one's going to stay with me for a bit longer. But to give you an idea of another version of the larger size bonnet, and you can see this one has some bubble wrap in it for storage purposes, but it'll help hold it up on my head right now so you can see just how big this particular bonnet is. This one, as well as the final version that I made for the client, does have a double layer of silk taffeta, so you've got the ivory silk lining, and I found that with the larger style, while you can certainly do a unlined version, sometimes having that extra layer of silk taffeta inside will help hold things up a little bit better for you. And this one is trimmed with that same pink silk satin ribbon that is available in the Build Your Own bonnet kits. So to give you an idea of that. So I think that pretty much covers everything that I wanted to talk about today. Definitely reach out if you have questions. If you are looking to put together a Build Your Own bonnet kit, or if you're interested in having me make one for you. I love making bonnets, and I do have a couple of different silk taffetas in stock right now, so again, if you don't see something on the site that you are interested in, reach out. I currently have this lovely kind of champagne ivory silk ribbon, or silk taffeta, that I think would be really pretty with the black silk satin ribbon trim for a bonnet. Which I really like that combination. I may need to make a version for myself out of that. So this is available right now for either custom made or build your own kits. And I currently have a small selection of green silk taffetas. This one's a little bit of an iridescent. This one also a little bit iridescent. And this amazing dark green, emerald green silk taffeta. So these are all currently available if you want something special put together for a kit or custom made. So yeah, I think that was everything I wanted to cover for the video today. Decided to do this as a pre-recorded versus a live because I want to be able to double post it on both Facebook and Instagram. And sometimes doing the live feeds can be a little bit funny when you go to save them. So I figured pre-recorded, get everything down, and then post. So yeah, Larkin and Smith 18th century bonnet patterns and kits available on the website. As far as upcoming stuff for the shop, I will be re-releasing another 18th century cap kit, as well as printed patterns, so look for those. I've got a few silks and some other fabrics that are going to be coming this spring, and maybe a few other items. We'll see. But thank you everybody for tuning in. Thank you for your support. Again, please reach out if you have questions. I'd love to hear your feedback if you end up purchasing this pattern or any of the other patterns. I'd love to see your makes. Please tag us on social media at the Sign of the Golden Scissors. You can also tag us Larkin and Smith, or Larkin and Smith bonnet, Larkin and Smith English gown. There's a couple of different hashtags that I've created for the various patterns. So yeah, I'd absolutely love to hear from you, see your makes. And thank you all again for your support, and happy sewing.